Yo, welcome back to another episode of my show. As always, we are presented to you by Passion Park ENT. You know what it is. I am glad to be back. I hope you all had a good week, a productive week. Hope you all got to do some fun stuff. I have a fun episode in store, mostly NBA stuff. Honestly, with the playoffs going, I just got a lot to talk about. But as always, you can check out all of our new stuff at passionparkent.com. I'm going to start the episode by talking a little bit about some upcoming content and stuff, as I usually do. So go to passionparkent.com. Right there on the homepage, we try to update with the new podcast and whatever new music or video content we have. And then if you want to check out my newest music, you just keep up with all my stuff, or just go back and listen to all my albums or any of my music videos. I have 100 songs out on streaming platforms. Please do that. Go to www.thedavidlopez.com or just search me up, David Lopez, on all streaming platforms, and you'll see a picture with this goofy-ass face. You know what it is. Let's get into the show.
David Lopez is the name. It's my show. Welcome to it.
Okay. So, if you follow me on social media, you might know that I announced yesterday, just out of pure joy, posted some pictures of me and my friends. I mentioned we went on that guys trip last couple weeks ago. That my album is done. I finally am willing to say that out loud to everybody, that the album is done. Even though I'm listening to it again last night in the car after another million mixes, and there was just one little note. One little note that came up that I actually pulled up a session that it's like about an outro on a song. That I'm like, I got to tweak that a little bit. But the reason I wanted to announce it yesterday and just publicly state new album is done, because, and I usually don't do that like in my past, but I want to be much more just like, I want to go through the full rollout process. I'm so proud of this project. It's the longest I've ever worked on an album, like, or on anything, honestly. Like the amount of hours, as they would say when you're working on a house, they would call it sweat equity. The amount of hours I put into this project is unmatched. So, however it's received, I think it'll be, I think it'll resonate with some people. I mean, it's very real to me. However it's received, I'm super fucking proud of it, because I just did a lot of work on it. And I don't want to talk too much about it, because there's going to be a lot more coming about it. But I just wanted to, it felt like a need for me to just publicly state it's done, because it was like a need for my own mental. Like, I'm telling you, and I know this is nothing new to anybody else. People who make their own music, people who engineer their own music, mix their own music, you know what it is. I literally bounced out the songs, each song probably got bounced out at the high end, probably 50, and then some of them probably are less than that. But honestly, bounce out, and then I would master too. A lot of them, I'll do a quick master, because I just want to hear for volume purposes when I put it in my car or wherever. So legit hundreds and hundreds of exports on the album, and not my brain not being able to move past it. And I was able to put out all these singles while I was working on this album, which did let me kind of escape the headspace from the album, and kind of just I knew I was just making the singles to make the singles. I knew those weren't going on an album. Actually, initially I had just started making a bunch of music, and I didn't know what was going to be an album. But then when it started to shape, I knew what was going to be there and what wasn't. So now I just feel like stating it, the album is done. I'm still working on, like I said, part of the rollout process and all the material that's going to go with it. But the actual recording, mixing, for the most part, is done. And that I just wanted to it just helps my headspace clear up. So now I can finish these other songs that I'm working on. Not that I couldn't before, but I can really, I feel like I'm ready to move on. I got to finish a feature today. I gotta record some more shit too. So I'm just I'm excited. I'm happy for everybody who not happy for. I'm happy for myself, but I'm happy anybody who said they're excited for it and shit. I appreciate it. We're gonna keep pushing it. The cool thing is, I think what I haven't done a good job at is what a lot of people, it's an issue, right? You focus and spend money on promoting and promotion before the song comes out, and you market it before the song comes out. But what I haven't done a good enough job is marketing after the shit's out, right? Is that is more important, especially when you're newer and you don't have that many fans. Get the work to more people. It doesn't matter. The people who already seen it have already seen it. Yeah, that is what it is. But you got to get it to new people. That is so important, right? I'm really focused for this project on that. Specifically, is post release is continuing the push for shit. I'm gonna make other music and put out other music, but I hope to push the same project for a long time, just to get it into as many people's ears as I can, because I'm proud of it. You know what I'm saying? So So that's what I wanted to say there. And that's kind of what I meant when I said talk about the content that's coming. But with that said, I have several other video projects that I've been editing and working together. Some are related to the album, and some are just other things that we just need to get out. I mean, I'll be honest, and I'll say, I mean, if anybody's waiting, like definitely the past couple of months, honestly, since my grandma passed, I'm not saying that they're completely related, but when that happened, I like took a little, like maybe week or two off of releasing stuff and just everything. I was just like, I was very emotional and needed to be with family. And since then, I haven't put out as much as we were. Like the first 3 months of the year was a frantic pace. I mean, it was a song every week. There was another video, whether it be making the video or lyric talk or whatever, and then the podcast every week. And it was just like a really frantic pace. And I was really, I'm glad I planned ahead and did that. But I slowed down a little right after that. Well, when my grandma thing happened, honestly, it was just, I mean, it didn't matter, but there's like some emotional stuff on my album. It's really family oriented. There's a lot of things like that. So I was just like, man, I just got to finish this and get this done and focus on that. So that's really what happened there. But anyways, I have a bunch more stuff coming. We got a bunch more geared up for the rest of the year that I'm trying to plan ahead as much as I can with this kid coming. So just stay tuned. We got a lot more coming. And on that front about the new stuff that's coming, first of all, make sure you stay up with my social media, because that's where I'm going to be announcing like when the new singles are going to come out for the album, all that stuff. You know what I mean? But related to new content and switching over to sports, as we are about to do here. I don't know why I just did that transition. That was the wrong one, guys. Let's do that. All right. By the way, related to this, but because I'm going to talk about the podcast. I've had this, this soundboard for a while, and I love recording the podcast on this. It makes it a lot easier. I can just do a lot of the sounds there. But I've been wanting to like really use some legit sounds on the soundboard, and I'm like worried about not worried, but like I was thinking like, should I start adding like not interview clips, but like highlights from games or whatever it may be, like really short clips onto the board. But I don't know if if I'm gonna run into any sort of copyright issues or anything like that. Like playing an interview from Damian Lillard or something like that. Like I just don't know. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna test the waters. Maybe I'll figure that out. But what I wanted to say before I get into this full NBA breakdown was what I'm thinking about doing here for the rest of the playoffs, specifically starting next week, is just because I got all these NBA thoughts. Like you'll see, I'm just gonna like go through all the series and give some notes on all of them. But with the games going on every single day, the series changed pretty dramatically throughout a week. They really can. I think what I'm going to do is start recording a couple episodes a week, starting next week for the NBA playoffs specifically. But I'll do the normal episode like this where I talk some music up front and then talk to the sports. But I'm going to do like some specific NBA, just break down some of the playoff matchups episodes that won't have video. They'll just be audio. I'll post them on the YouTube too, but it'll just probably be the artwork. But that way it's just like a lot easier for me to just like wake up or at the end of the night is just literally just straight up record the podcast portion or the audio portion of the podcast, talk about that, not have to edit the video or upload the video, which is really what takes the chunk of time with this. Not that I do a lot of editing. You can see it just straight through. But anyways, I want to do that. So I think I'm going to start doing that a couple times next week. So hopefully 2 or 3 episodes next week. Just like I said, brief breakdowns of me basketball. So if you like hearing me talk basketball, stay tuned for those episodes and, get them wherever you listen to the podcast. You know what I'm saying? We everywhere with it. All right, let's get into this awesome first week of NBA playoffs. It's been really exciting. And I want to start right away by saying, and I know everybody's been saying this, but how wonderful and amazing and game-changing it is to have crowds back. I mean, if you watched the Knicks game at the Garden with that full crowd, I mean, it was like, it's no wonder. Like, of course, I as a real serious hoops fan, like I enjoyed the bubble. I got to see, you got to hear the players trash talk each other, and like it was a whole different world. The energy was obviously weird, but you're just like, whatever. It's a pandemic. We know it's different. But man, it reminds you so much like how big of a factor the crowd is in sports. Like it just really is. I mean, you look at a baseball game too, like all that things. Like I mean, specifically NBA playoffs because the crowds are rocking. But shout out to the fans. It's wonderful to have fans back. I was considering buying tickets to a Bucks playoff game last week, but actually I'm glad we didn't because it was gonna be game 2 of Bucks Heat, and they just fully throttled them. They had like a bajillion threes in the first quarter. But just because I just want that energy, you want to be around it. It's nice. I mean, a lot of these places, they have fully vax sections that are just loose, basically just real world. It is what it is. Full capacity, I know here in Milwaukee, full capacity for Bucks is starting in a couple weeks. Some stadiums obviously are already doing that, depending state by state. But it's fucking great. We are back, baby. Like this is back. I mean, Lollapalooza is coming full capacity this summer. Concerts are back. Everything is happening. I'm excited, and I hope. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful. We went through a lot, the past year and a half, just dealing with it. It reminds you of how weird it was that we didn't have shit going on for so long, and now it's coming back, and it's really exciting. So that's great. And with my mention about the Bucks Heat, we're going to transition right into that right away because honestly, there's not much to say. I wrote in my predictions here that the Bucks were going to beat the Heat in 6, right? I overestimated the Heat, and it was emotional. I mean, honestly, this is what I texted this to my brother. I've heard other people say this, so I'm not saying that it's just me, but if it's not for the Heat beating the Bucks last year and just being the, kryptonite for the Bucks' good season last year, if you just look at this year's matchups, you look at the Bucks' whole season, their numbers, how their team stacked up this year, it's a different squad than last year. I mean, just the addition of Drew Holiday is a game changer. PJ Tucker's, I think, a big playoff move for them, too. If you just looked at this season and all those things, there's no reason to think the Heat even had a chance in this series, in my opinion. I mean, you say Jimmy Butler could do it all, but no, this is a sweep. I mean, the Bucks are significantly better than the Heat. Heat are struggling, but I think most of the Heat struggles, the Heat haven't been great all year. That's why they got the 6th seed. They've been all right. Tyler Hero's been very up and down in his sophomore year. You're not going to get what you got from him in the playoffs last year. That was just a crazy run for him, an amazing start to his career. He's a good player, but he's not balling out like that. Bam. Some teams I think have figured out how to maintain Bam, I should say, because he's still super good, super talented. But like, if you don't do all the switches on guards with him and you leave him separate on defense, because where he's elite is defensively, he can switch on any guard and really lock him up. Like he's kind of got that Kevin Garnett back in the day where you could switch on guards and really still handle him. But if you don't do that with him and you kind of leave him off, like, I don't know, teams have maintained it. His offensive game still needs a lot of improvement, but the Heat just they're not near the Bucks level right now. And the Bucks look like they're going to make a serious run here. And that's going to bring us into, first of all, like I said, I picked the Bucks over the Heat in 6. I'd be very surprised if the Heat won on Saturday. I'm recording this Friday morning. If the Heat won tomorrow and sent it to Game 5, I'd be very surprised. I think tomorrow the series ends. I think the Bucks sweep them. Otherwise, we're going 5 and it's a gentleman's sweep. The series is over to me. And I think another reason the Bucks are going to push to try to get that done Saturday and I don't think they're going to come out lax on Saturday. They're focused on the title, right? Giannis is like, this is it, right? That's what they want, right? They know who they got to go through next round. And that series is likely going to be a sweep too, okay? So Nets Celtics is the other matchup here, right? It's 2-0 Nets. They play tonight. I fully got the Nets winning tonight. I actually got them in a teaser just straight up as a pick. I'd be, if they don't win tonight, I'd be surprised. Without Tatum, Tatum is playing. He had the eye injury. Tatum is going to play tonight. Jaylen Brown, no play. Maybe the Celtics can squeak out one in this series. I don't think so. I think what both these guys are trying to do, the Nets and the Bucks, realize, get that first round done in as quick as possible, 4 games each, and then you go into this big matchup as healthy as possible. Bucks Nets second round is going to be fucking awesome. The Nets are better. They're more talented. The Bucks are a more collective unit as a team. They have a real identity. The Nets are fucking talented and good. Their identity is we're going to score more points than you, right? And frankly, when you got Harden, Kyrie, and Durant, that strategy is probably the appropriate strategy. Let's score more points than the other guys. But I'm sticking with my Nets pick, I think. Maybe I'll I'm not going to be stubborn. If I think the Bucks are going to make the move, I'll just say it. But right now I'm going to stick with that, but I could see that series going 6 or 7. I could see it being just awesome. And I could see either team winning. I could see the Bucks winning. I could see the Bucks winning it all. Watching them, they're different than they've been in the past. They're tougher. Drew Holiday is good. He's a good NBA. He's really good. Good point guard. I think a starting point guard on a championship level team, he is that. If you're going to tell me KCP and Caruso are starting guards for, a championship Lakers team, then Drew Holiday is 100% a starting point guard for an NBA championship team. So I look out for that Bucks Nets coming up here. And the Nets Celtics series, I don't really have much else to mention there. I don't have much to mention about those. Both those sweeps. Moving on. There we go. Let's move on because I got some stuff to talk about. Sticking with the East side before I switch over to the West. Sixers, Wizards. Should be a sweep, probably. I could see the Wizards getting one if Beal has like 40 and Westbrook has a triple-double. But Sixers are already up 2-0. That series is over. It's not even a matchup. Whatever. We know Sixers are going to move on there. But the only highlight you want to talk about, and I'm sure, all these other sports publications are talking about it, so it's not much to say, but just how disgusting that the move by the Philly fan was to just dump that popcorn on Westbrook. And when you see the clip, it's not like he's just like, oh, there's a little. He's fucking dumping that shit. Philly is known to have the shittiest fans, and they just expose themselves even more. Just a very, look, I don't know anybody who would say that that's okay. I guess some Philly fans, just on the topic of like heckling and like and yelling at during games and yelling at other fans and yelling at players and whatever, like that shit is lame. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong to heckle and yell. Like I get it. That's cool. I've been drunk and young at games and yelled, but I've never been into like talking too much shit. Like, but like the getting personal talking shit to players specifically when you're just a fan is so fucking weird to me. Like, people start talking to like the players' families at games. Like John Morant's family was getting taunted at the Jazz game. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, you're a fucking loser. If you go to a sports game and you think this is my time to talk shit to the player's family or to talk shit to a player about his family, you're a fucking loser. Like, what are you doing with your life? You are buying an expensive ticket to a game to watch grown men play a game, and it's entertainment, and you think it's your right to make personal vendettas and personal attacks on these professional athletes who are there to entertain you, and you'll do it in front of your family, in front of your kids, teaching them these shitty lessons. It is gross. I don't associate myself with people who think any of that shit is okay. And frankly, I think most people think that popcorn shit wasn't okay. I think, most people are good. There's clearly a factor of fans that think whatever, we do whatever we can. And you factor, that section of fans, the fan base that thinks that type of action is okay, you are not needed in sports. You are not needed in sports. You can sit your ass at home, and the pandemic was made for you. Sit at home and watch the games because we don't need that kind of energy at real sporting events. You're going to get it no matter what. There's millions of fans watching, however many games, and then you have alcohol involved, of course. I'm just saying, you're a fucking loser. That's all I'm saying there. All right, moving on. The most entertaining first round series on the Eastern Conference side is the only one that I picked to really be entertaining, I guess. Knicks Hawks. The Garden was a fucking ruckus. It's great to have the Knicks back playing well. Julius Randle really struggling there. Anyways, I picked Knicks over Hawks in 7, right? And it's funny, if you go back to last week's episode, I said I said that the storyline would come out would be that the Trae Young growing pains. He struggles in his first playoff appearance. I'll tell you what, his first 2 playoff games are the opposite of that. He has been balling. He hit the game winner in game 1. And he just, when you watched it, had complete control over the game. Like the pace of it, the Knicks couldn't stay in front of him. Not many people can stay in front of him one-on-one. He's really quick. He's very shifty. And his floater game is on point. But he was making very good decisions, had really good control of the game. I was very impressed, honestly. I was like, Trae looks great. I like hearing him in interviews after. He's just I like Trae Young. I do. I don't love everything he does and how he always plays, like when he's playing super one-on-one-ish. But when he's making the right decisions, he's a good-ass point guard in this particular kind of NBA style. And the Hawks have talent. They have more offensive talent than the Knicks. The Knicks are a more grit-grind team. And that squeezing out that game 2 was the series. If they lose that game 2, the series is over. So them pulling that out was the series. And Julius Randle has not played well in either of the games. He showed up a little bit in the second half of game 2, but he's been their MVP candidate all year. He hasn't shown up and they're 1-1. So I think that's actually a good sign for the Knicks because I expect him to start showing up. He honestly, the playoff nerves look like they got to him. He hasn't looked like the same player. But also, he has you can watch his game and kind of have an idea of what he's going to do. Now, he's overpowering and he's big, so you can still do the things that you think he's going to do. But jab step left, jumper or spin into the like he just does a lot of similar moves. And when you have a full series to prepare, that's this is what we talk about with Giannis struggling in the playoffs. Like you can match up against that. So the Knicks needed other guys to step up. And what do we have? Probably the funnest storyline of the playoffs so far, Derrick Rose. I mean, he is a beloved NBA player. Like, I don't know. You don't hear people talking shit about Derrick Rose. People love seeing this comeback story. Obviously, former MVP, just having a great comeback after all these injuries. And now, he started the second half of the Knicks game, and maybe he'll start game 3. Starting point guard for the New York Knicks, who are the 4 seed in the playoffs at a rockin' Garden. Like, he's back. He's still 32 years old, and he got some more years to play. Like, shout out to him. And just seeing his humble answers after and just saying, like, I worked my ass off to get here and to get back and to reshape my game. It's fucking great. All Chicago, Bulls fans are watching these Knicks. Like, there's a real soft place in our heart to watch Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, and Tom Thibodeau out there playing in the playoffs in front of a rocking crowd. It's emotional. It's emotional. But so shout out to Derrick and Taj, too. It's just been really cool to watch. And just on top of all how cool it's been to watch, Derrick is balling. He's been really fun to watch, too. He's so shifty. His game has changed a little bit, because he's not nearly as athletic, but his floater game's still on point. Just huge Derrick Rose fan, so I had to do that. So shout out to D Rose on all that. And that's the Eastern Conference, all right? That's the Eastern Conference. We're going to move on to the West real quick. I'm going to try to get through this stuff, and then this week's episode is long, but I knew it was going to be because of the playoffs. And then next week I'll do some shorter ones as I break down these specific matchups. Okay, all right. So we're gonna start with the one that they played last night. It's probably the most anticipated first round matchup. Lakers Suns. Okay, Suns come in with the 2 seed. They had a great season. Lakers a 7 seed, right? Lakers last night took the 2-1 lead in the series. And frankly, in my estimation, they took hold of this series halfway through game 2. They were like, this is our bitch. We're gonna do this. Game 1 was a struggle for them. I'm telling you though, game 1, I actually didn't get to see all game 1 because it was an earlier game. I got to see some of it. But I was talking to some friends and talking to some people, and some people are like, see, the Suns have a chance and stuff. I never, and I almost wish I would have recorded right after game 1. I never was swayed from this series by game 1. LeBron loses game 1 so many times. As a Bulls fan, I just have vivid memories of the Bulls making the Eastern Conference Finals with D Rose. They're playing the Heat. They dominate game 1. They won game 1 by 20. I think it was 101 to 81 or something like that. The Bulls dominated game 1. They didn't have a chance the rest of the series. Gentleman's sweep. The Heat figured it out. And LeBron has done this plenty of times where it's almost like he's taking the pulse in game 1. And I'm not saying he didn't try in game 1 because he did. And he actually just looked physically like he wasn't as good as he needs to be. It wasn't there. But then all of a sudden, game 2 and game 3, he looks like he's back. AD has been dominant. He didn't show up in game 1. That's really the real, the real thing that happened in game 1 was AD had a terrible game. It was one of those Anthony Davis games where he just looks like he wasn't there. He has those once in a while. But then he comes back, with a vengeance, and he's been dominant the past 2 games. And then, the third storyline is that Chris Paul is hurt. He hurt his shoulder in game 1. It sucks as a fan because why does it feel like every time he's on a really good team that supposedly has a chance to make a deep run, he gets hurt or something? Or at least the past couple years. I mean, the Warriors versus the Rockets was his closest chance at a title, and he got hurt in that series. Last year, he's on a Thunder team that is way overperforming and has no chance, so there's not really pressure for him to win a title, and he stays fully healthy and has an amazing playoff run. And this year, he's on a contender, and he gets hurt right away. So it sucks. It's just, there's nothing to blame there. It just sucks. It's bad luck. Even if he's fully healthy, though, I think the Lakers are winning this series. Now, I picked the Lakers to win the series in 6. I'm going to stick with that, but I would not be surprised if they just win out and win this in 5. as they're up 2-1 now. They got to win one more in Phoenix and then head back to LA. If they win game 4, the series is done in 5. That's what I'd say there. But the other just quick note, campaign coming in for Chris Paul to replace him. And I mean, I've been watching these games. He looks good. Is that the same guy who was on the Bulls? Because he's way better. So shout out to Campaign for stepping up his game. I mean, I will give him a lot of slack. He played for Jim Boylan on the Bulls, and that's just, I mean, you're not expected to do much there. So shout out to Campaign. All right, moving on. Portland versus Denver. They played last night. Denver, man. I think I said it. I said the series is going 7. I think a lot of people predicted it too. It just has 7 written all over. It just feels like it. But like Jokic, he's proven his MVP case. He doesn't need to prove it anymore. He played the whole season and dominated, but he is really putting on a show. They can't guard him. Not that the Blazers guard anybody. They don't play much defense, but he is dominant. And the Blazers I'm just surprised. The Blazers, I just thought they had more of, they have all these veterans and experience. I thought they had more of a killer instinct to really come out in game 3 and put the foot on the Nuggets' necks. But no, Nuggets take the lead in this series. They're up 2-1. I picked Portland in 7, and I think I'm going to stick with that because I have faith that Dame is going to come back there, but would not be surprised if the Nuggets won it. And frankly, I like the Nuggets. I love watching Jokic play, so I would not mind watching them move on. No matter what, that next matchup against the Lakers is going to be tough. But all I really got to say about that is that's an entertaining series. That's going to be the buzzer beaters and entertainment that we're going to get in round 1 on the West Side. So West Side. So stay in tune with that. Now, this is the biggest surprise of the first round so far. I had the Clippers beating the Mavs in 5. If you heard my breakdown of it, I just basically was saying how the Clippers are just more talented and the Mavs are just not ready. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, Mavs are up 2-0. The Clippers, I just thought that they weren't going to do the same thing they did before, which was like curl up and not show up when they needed to in the big moments in the playoffs. And man, I don't know why I gave them the benefit of the doubt. They have just not, it's not even that they haven't shown up, it's that Luka has just dominated them too. So all the memes of Luka being like Debo and shit and just going to work on them are great because he really has. He's just manned up against these guys. And I don't know. I'm not saying this series is over because I do think that the Clippers, if the Clippers win tonight, game 3, you take it game by game, they can tie the series. I think the Clippers can still win the series. The series is not over. But I tell you, if the game 3 first quarter starts tonight and Luka hits 3 threes and he's on fire and you're like, uh-oh, this is another Luka game, I would look out. I mean, because the Clippers have the kind of team that I could see imploding just caving in and being like, this is it. We're going to get swept. So, and then, if that happens, then their hosts, I don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to trade Paul George? Is that whole team going to implode? On the other podcast I listened to, they were talking about the Clippers have the most to lose by getting upset in this first round. And I think they might be right. They might be right, but also I don't know what moves they can make. They traded all their draft picks. They did all this stuff. If somebody's willing to take Paul George, I think that's the move they make. They probably trade Paul George. Or Kawhi leaves, but I don't know. Nobody, you can't predict Kawhi because he's from LA, so you thought he wants to stay there, but you really can't predict him. I don't know. The Clippers are the most if they get bounced in this first round, what the hell is that team going to be next year? That's the biggest question for me for them. And then finally, Jazz Grizzlies. This is an entertaining series, but it's good that I didn't record after episode 1. And the people who did have a podcast or had a daily sports show, they talk after episode 1. Everybody's like, holy shit, the Grizzlies look like they're just a better team than the Jazz. They just have more talent. They're the grit and grind. The Jazz did not shoot well at all in game 1. They made 7 threes or something like that. They're averaging 17 threes on the year. They shot terrible in game 1. And then in game 2, big surprise, they hit 17 threes or 18 threes. And they won the game. I mean, they look like a different team when they're making threes. It's the whole build of their team. And that's why they were a very good regular season team. Because if you have good shooters and a good big man who gets a lot of open shots for them, which Rudy Gobert does do just by rim running and running. And not that he's a great post-up big man, but just by rim running, he creates a lot of open shots, gets a lot of blocks. They get a lot of transition threes. They can look a team like that has the best record in the league, but is relying upon threes, they can look terrible when they miss, when they're there and not hitting. So that's another reason why I wouldn't pick them to go deep. Is just because that's not the kind of team that I think makes a deep run. I think the Lakers are the number one defense. I heard the stat last night, and I think I knew it, but I still heard it again. Lakers are the number one defense all season, despite AD and LeBron being out all pretty much, like half of the season individually. Like, they still had the number one defense all season. All that is championship build right there. Like, that's how if you predict a team that's going to go make a deep run in the playoffs, that's it. That's it. It's funny because I wouldn't say. I mean, I know defense wins championships, the old mantra, but I'm like I was all offense. I love shooting. I love buckets. Like, that's like when I used to hoop, like, or when I still, whatever. That's like my shit. As most people do. As a fan of the game, you want to watch Steph Curry hit threes from everywhere. But man, the more you see, the more the more you just look at the history of the NBA. It's like the teams that can lock down are usually the teams that stick around in the playoffs a little longer. And that's why I'm not picking the Jazz to go far. That being said, I don't want to overreact about the Grizzlies stealing Game 1. They had some huge emotional victories and had some momentum from the playing games. Came in hot, and Dylan Brooks and Ja just diced up the Jazz. I think the Jazz are winning this series in 6, which is actually I picked that they would it would go 6 if the Warriors played. They would only go 5 if the Grizzlies played. I got the Jazz in 6. I think the Jazz are still going to come out of this series. But the most entertaining point to me about this and like watching Game 2 was like, and Game 1 too, like can't keep your eyes off, is Ja Morant, man. Like, he is just so fucking good. The Jazz have no answers. He gets to wherever he wants on the floor. If he's knocking down his three, good luck. Like, because then you go under and he still can hit a couple. He is awesome to watch. I mean, really brings me back to like Derrick Rose young because of just how athletic he is and how irky jerky he is. But like but he's even thinner and he has like a thinner build and he's more wiry. Just amazing to watch, and just the way his first two playoff games, I think he's like the second leading scorer in his first 2 playoff career games of all time. I mean, that's just crazy stat. There's a lot of good young NBA players. I mean, Ja and Luka and Trey just really showing up in the playoffs is pretty cool. Pretty cool. So yeah, that was my first round breakdown of every single matchup that we have had so far. I know I've been trying to keep these episodes to like 15, 20 minutes, but today I just really wanted to get to all of them. I mean, I took a full note thing on all of these games. Let me see if there's anything I missed here. I wrote an exclamation points, Luka, and then I put clips blow. Kind of talked about that. I guess the only thing I would talk about with the Grizzly Jazz that I didn't mention is Donovan Mitchell is back for Game 2. Another big surprise. Their best player comes back and they win the game. He has 25 points. I think there was some storylines around Game 1 because it was so weird. He said he wanted to play, then the team said they held him out. Whatever. He's back. Jazz are back. I still got them winning in 6. But I'll probably be cheering for the Grizzlies because I like the Grizzlies. So there's a world where the second round is Memphis versus Dallas and Phoenix versus Portland or Denver. It's not happening because the Lakers are winning that. But there's a world where we have some weird matchups here. I don't know. Whatever. I'm loving the NBA playoffs. I hope you can hear it in my voice and the energy. I am very excited. And I'm excited actually to do some more just straight up breakdowns next week too. So I hope you all are enjoying yourself. Make sure you enjoy your holiday weekends, Memorial Day weekend. Spend some time with some family. I know we got some stuff, some shenanigans we're getting into over here. Kind of final wrap up before this baby comes for us. So this is kind of our final weekend of doing shit before we just hunker down and wait for this kid to show up in our world. So that's what's going on over here. I am glad to be recording. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be talking to you all. And frankly, I'm glad to be watching the NBA playoffs. So that's my what to watch. Watch the playoffs. Stay tuned and chill with family. I don't know. All right, one love, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the David Lopez Show, presented to you by Passion Park ENT. Go to PassionParkENT.com for more good stuff. One love.